Is it safe to say, my man, spicy is a word you would use when it comes to the marketplace right now?
Picante. Yes, sir. Spicy, picante, however you want to say it. But I will also too, look, it's this reminds me of a classic scenario. The Chinese word for risk is the same word for opportunity, right? It's the word's synonymous. And I just think that that's all over the place. I think that you've got a lot of valuations, a lot of things that are very concerning here in the U.S. I'm not worried about the market overall. I don't think we're, looking at some big, huge market drop. But I think the impact is going to be similar because so many investors, like at no other time in U.S. history, there's no comp where you've got such concentration of wealth and investors in so few names. And it's got to be, I'll just tell you like I see it. Everybody's still in those names because of what they've done, not what they're going to do. And I just think investors are so off sides right now because you start comping around the world. Really interesting right now. There's probably 10 overall countries that are up more than 10% this year, and the Meg 7 here in the United States is down 7.5%. You haven't seen that in a really long time. The crazy part about it, Chad, is that in the last year and a half with this multiple expansion blowout in the S&P, like most investors, we were focused on that. We weren't paying attention to how that was happening. What it looks like is that all of that multiple expansion over the last 2 years here in the U.S. came directly at the cost of every other stock market in the world. So it was just siphoning cash out. You go into those markets now. So you're at a point now where internationally speaking, you have never, ever had stocks trading at as big of a discount to the U.S. as they are currently. Never. Okay? And here's how drastic it is. We manage about somewhere between 800 to 900 million. And of that, about $500 million, 500 million is what we're actively managing in markets. So we've been, over the last month, acquiring some more of these international names just because there's some unbelievable companies that are trading at 7 times earnings. And if you just took that country and made it based in the United States, it'd be trading at 50 or 60 times. Just crazy, right? So we've tried to get into some of these names. I can't tell you how many times we've come across either a stock that we love or an ETF of a country that we love. And at a $500 million portfolio, I can't get into it. Really? And there's not enough volume. There's no money in these markets. There's none. Right. So when these flows reverse, and so what will happen at some point, right? This is a guarantee. At some point, the United States has been the magnet for capital all around the world. Okay, at some point, those flows reverse, and the United States markets become the funding mechanism for other markets around the world. Okay, we think that time is upon us. Why? You got a scenario where what's more likely? The U.S. makes up 15% of the global economy, yet our stock market makes up 70% of global stock market valuations. It ain't going to 90, Chad.
No.
Right? So now here's where it gets really interesting. If you had, let's just say we get a bit of a rebalancing, which is clearly needed, right? So let's say instead of making up 70%, it falls to 55. Still historically on the very high side, okay? Here's what people aren't missing. Just that swing right there, the U.S. going from 70% to 55% of global market capitalization would mean that the capital going into international markets went up by 50%.
That's insane.
Right? So when you look at the valuations of these things and the volumes and the fact that nobody's there, when money starts flowing into these, and I'm talking like companies that are growing at 15% a year, paying 7% dividends, trading at less than book value. So trading at less than the value of their assets, right? So the market is effectively saying this business is worth nothing. And you go, well, how is a business growing at 15%, paying a 7% dividend with 21% margins? How is it worth nothing?
The public is saying in their
right.
It's not worth anything.
Right. And so I'm sitting there going, well, thank you very much. I actually think it is worth something. I'll take that off your hands. And I'll just tell you, man, I've been doing this for 16 years. I've never seen valuations like this. To the point where we're having to adjust the way we look at things, meaning we've got an awesome nat gas company that's just awesome. They're kicking tail on every level. They've bought back so much stock they can't buy it back anymore, and so they're paying it out in the form of a dividend. They're paying 13.5%.
That's crazy.
And so when you see those yields, my initial response is, oh, that company's in trouble. People go, why would you think that? Because nobody would pass up on a 13% yield, right? A 14% dividend. So usually when you see dividend rates anywhere close to that, what the market is telling you is that this company's in financial trouble and they're probably going to have to cut their dividend. Well, we're looking at these dividends and you're going through the financials, you're sitting there going, wait a second, are we missing something? This company's, its revenues are increasing, it has net debt, it has no net debt, no net cash, no debt on the balance sheet. It's growing revenues at 13, 14, 15% a year. It's cash flowing like crazy. It's paying 13.5%. And you're going, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Just that nobody wants it because it's not tech. Well, look, and for people to understand this, guys, 14% yield compounded, the stock doesn't need to go up. If you get that yield for 4 years, compounded, reinvested, you double your money.
It's great.
So, yeah, and I mean, we're finding that all over the place, but here's the thing that gets me excited, but also concerned about the average investor. The average investor has never been as underinvested in international stocks, commodities, energy, metals. They have never been less invested in that stuff than ever. And now, when you look at fundamentals and valuations, we have never seen a period of time in the last 100 years where this stuff was priced more advantageously when you comp it to the overall market. It's just, the valuations are remarkable, man.
Talking to Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital. Let's have some fun, talk a little politics and whatnot. DOGE, another week, that crazy press conference. They've adjusted now. They're running into bureaucracy that is mighty and big and strong, and the reality of the task at hand. But you and I have always talked about it. This thing's going to be sorted out in many cases in a courtroom.
Yeah, I'll throw you a little inside baseball. And this is, well, you and I have been doing this long enough. This is no exaggeration, no hyperbole. The amount that they're able to cut is probably going to jump really quickly. And I've got a front row seat to this. So an uncle of mine, check this out. The other thing is I think this is a perfect story for anybody out there that's worried about what DOGE is doing and whether this is a perfect illustration of why we got to get a hold of government budgets, and it's also why we in America trust free markets, okay? So my uncle, who was like an older brother to me, he longtime Marine, and then got out of the Marines, no college degree, started doing paintless dent removal. And he started doing paintless dent removal on some of the Army bases, okay? And so then he started noticing on all of these trucks, the ballistic glass on these trucks would be all yellowed out and fogged up, and so you couldn't see through the truck. Well, he started asking questions about that, because he's like, it doesn't look like you guys can see. And they're like, this is one of our biggest expenses in the Department of Defense. It's that every 2 or 3 years, and the time lapse depends on where the trucks are put out, you get oxidation and you get yellowing of that ballistic glass, and it really quickly gets to a point where you can't see through it. So you've got vehicle pools in this country, you've got thousands and thousands of vehicles that are in perfect working order, but their ballistic glass is all screwed up, and so they can't be used, right? And right now there's a big backlog because of COVID, and that ballistic glass, if you're looking at one of these troop carriers or whatever it is, and let's say you've got 5 ballistic glass windows on it, you're probably looking at $50,000 to $60,000 of ballistic glass. Okay, so when that glass yellows, they have no way to fix it. They got to replace it. So my uncle saw this problem, and he came up with a form-fitted, really slick with magnets that covers that go over all of these windows, that has a layer of UV blocking material inside of it that will keep those from yellowing. And then he also experimented around and is the first person to figure out how to fix that oxidation problem. So instead of having to buy new glass for the tune of 50 to 60 grand per car, he can fix all the windows for about 2,500 bucks. Department of Defense had him fix it, flew a team out just a week ago to test the glass to make sure it still worked. Works like a gem. Their numbers, now I have no way of knowing this, they said that, and they're moving this fast, there's a, today he wasn't there, but somebody that's representing him, and I'm helping out as well, I'm helping him out on the business side of it, met with one under Pete Hegseth today. They're launching this through. Their numbers, the DOD guys said that they think this can save the Department of Defense $1 to $2 trillion over the next 10 years. That's how much they're saving on ballistic glass. So if you see an announcement about how they're going to be saving all this money on ballistic glass in the military, and this is a huge problem, right? Like nobody'd been able to figure out how to fix the glass, so they had to reorder it. They do all this. The classic example, an ex-Marine with no college degree sits there and goes, yeah, I can fix all that for you. All your trucks are ready to go. Here's your glass. He can fix that glass in 30 minutes. And it's just a classic story, right? They're going to waste $1 to $2 trillion, and the free market jumps up. It's like, hey, I can fix it for about 1/20th the cost, and we can get all of those vehicles right back in service right now. So my feeling, because they've had issues coming up with these cost cuts, I have a feeling that we're probably a decent chance that we see my uncle get paraded on a stage somewhere. And just seeing how fast this is moving forward, a 3-star general said this is our #1 priority right now. So anyway, keep an eye out for that, because I think we might hear about that, and it'll be it's really cool. I'm really proud of my uncle, and really proud of. I mean, that's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, they're going to save soldiers' lives. Talk about trimming $1 to $2 trillion off of the budget. It's pretty cool. So keep an eye out for that.
Make a few bucks off of it.
He's going to make a lot more than that, and he already has. It's the orders are rolling in hot, and basically this is going to become the new way that we deal with and treat ballistic glass, and it's going to save an unbelievable amount of money. So they're going to find these, I think they're going to find cost savings like that just because they're willing to open up and listen, right? Yeah. The other thing that you can tell is it has been shocking to me how fast this has moved up the ladder, meaning this government is working with a new level of urgency that I just haven't seen. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people in the industry that we're dealing with as I help them through this thing. They're just saying, yeah, man, you could already see the ramifications coming down. Things are moving fast, and people are actively looking at ways to improve processes and cut costs. And I think that's going to be a big one.
And, as we talk about like the DOGE, it's interesting because they're not going to find many places to cut where there's human and waste, and there's so much of that stuff, and the battle of the unions. But I've said technology through the private sector will find ways to save that money that needs to be saved, even if you got to keep these 15 people that only 3 people need the job.
Well, yeah, the other thing too is give these guys some time, right? I mean, it took 250 years to get into this mess. The other thing is you got to get your bearing, and this I think is a classic example. I actually think this is a classic example of how we are going to be able to cut the greatest amount of waste and spending, Chad. And it's going to be to unleash the free market and unleash the American entrepreneur on these problems. If government had the answer, we wouldn't be here anyway. And just think about that. These guys were just handcuffed with all of this glass, where you had entire motor pools of trucks that are in perfect working order. They can't deploy. They got a backlog on the glass. They got all this in it. All of a sudden, a guy, an American entrepreneur walks in. He's like, "Yeah, I can fix all this, no problem." Yeah. It's just America's an incredible place with incredible people that can do a lot of things. We get into trouble when those in D.C. think they're the only ones with the answers. And we're gonna
have to run through their cousins or father-in-law or brother, which is also a giant, huge mess.
Well, I mean, you just described USAID, right? I mean, that's. I mean, we've come to recognize that for what it is, which is a giant slush fund for the CIA and for us to be doing, black ops around the world that we don't want our own, constituency aware of.
It's some of that stuff they were talking about, like today or yesterday, because the insanity of USAID was taking money than going out and hiring lobbyists with that money that they got from the government to go get more money from the government.
Okay, so we've got some Doge. We have people doing Doge on Washington State.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so going through that line item, found some pretty wild stuff, but here's the craziest one I found. $65,000 of taxpayer money was sent to a club in Seattle to host male circle handling sessions.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. There's pictures of it and everything. It's irrefutable. The head of we found an interview where the head of that club is on there talking about how he loves to do this. $65,000 of taxpayer funds went to sponsor circle jerks.
This is why. That's why I want to hear people crying. I need that. No, I'm sorry. People don't care. And
No.
CIA agents coming out, like John Kirikawa going, of course, man, the minute Kennedy was dead, the CIA had ran on in there and grabbed the state. They looked at them and they go, okay, we'll take the Peace Corps and we'll take USAID. But we don't want to work an 8-hour job, so we're going to figure out a way to just launder the money rather than do anything else.
The American way, right? Smarter, not harder. Yeah, it's unbelievable. The other thing you found in Washington State, and these things are going to have to get dealt with because these are crimes. They gave significant donations to over 80 churches, okay, where they were the only source of funding for that church. But guess what kind of churches we're talking about?
No, some of those uber progressive ones.
Yeah, which I sit there and I go,
Trans.
that's a violation of separation of church and state, man. Like, you're giving money to that 65, that's illegal. These are illegal. People need to be prosecuted. Okay, these people are running around, throwing around taxpayer dollar like they're at the strip club, and and they just won that money in a casino. This is nuts. It's nuts.
You're walking. You go to a casino with your buddy, and he goes, "Here's $2,000. This is just your money. You have fun. You rock and roll with it. It's not for bills. It's nothing. You go have fun." You're going to gamble that money different than if you brought your own $2,000.
Putting it on black, baby.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you're gonna leverage it up. And we've seen this before. The news reports coming about Secret Service when they're in foreign countries partying it up and hiring hookers. Like this is systemic. Okay, and people need to wake up, and it's not political. No. It's both aisles. What this is when you give, if you want to know what we're seeing here in the U.S. government, go give a 19-year-old college kid an Amex. Tell them there's no limit and see what it looks like in 6 months. That's what's going on, right?
Tell them he's got to use it, otherwise they'll take it away from him.
That's right. They're going to cut it. Yeah, they'll cut his limit, right? It's just, and to think that there are so many people, I've literally listened to people straight face going, yes, I just don't think there's nearly as much waste as they think. And you sit there and go, okay, just on a rational level, that should knock you off the rolls of possible candidates for serving. When you're looking at a $6.5 trillion budget, the chances of there not being, and remember, by the way, that budget is allocated based on political ideology and political ends. It's not allocated for efficiency, right? So the chances of it not having 15 to 20% waste are virtually zero.
Well, it's like Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
Escobar knew that, okay, I'm going to lose $2 million to $3 million a week because of rats and the environment. That's just the cost of doing business. That's a waste.
Well, yep.
So, like, he knew it. You guys don't know it? He's Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, you and I both know it. This is all about, all of this outcry, all of this din is them afraid that they are losing control of the invisible mechanism that has been driving our country for the better part of the last 60 years. And it is completely undemocratic. It is completely anti-constitutional. And what scares them is the very thing that's giving me hope, and it should be giving all of us hope because, look, light's the best, sunshine's the best disinfectant, right? And the American people deserve to know how poorly and how wastefully their tax dollars have been deployed.
Well, I've always said, man, if you ran your business this way, you'd go to jail. Fiduciary responsibility? Not when it's not my money. Well, hold on a second. Everybody else is held to a standard.
You know what? That's part of it, man. I was sitting down there looking at this because I get paid to allocate capital on behalf of my clients. And I'm going down there looking at the things they're spending money on. and your stomach turns, and then you start to get angry, because I'm always looking at these things through the lens of, if that works, what does that mean for our clients? And if it doesn't work, and am I making the right decision? And are we allocating, right? Just, you're constantly toiling over this. Then you read through this and you're sitting there going, you don't even care. As a matter of fact, you're trying to do this, right? You're doing it despite what you know we want. You're going against our will. And you're just wasting it. It's so maddening. These people should be strung up. And like I said, I know the country needs to come back together, but the more and more we see here, Chad, people need to go to jail, man. This is fraud. And I think in some cases it's sedition, and it's people need to go to jail.
Yeah, unfortunately, the people that investigate this are the people who did it. So how many times are like, hey, I get to grade my own paper and there's no repercussion? Okay, we'll see how that goes. Hey, people want to reach out to you. Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital. Want to join you on March 20th. What do they do?
Yeah, go to bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com, knowyourriskradio.com. We're really easy to find. We're going to have that webinar coming up where we're going to work in some of these charts to show you guys the opportunity. And just as long as all of us have been alive, there has never been a spread of valuations between U.S. and the rest of the world. And then even sectors in the U.S. we're seeing that are trading it. And it's just incredible opportunity. And you and I both know, man, all the big money's made at the swings and the turns. I think we got a big turn upon us right now. And if not, here's the wonderful thing. If not, we've got a wonderful opportunity to buy a bunch of assets and a bunch of companies at crazy cheap prices, which that's music to my ears.
Absolutely, brother. Good talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. Fun as always.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.